Hey, it's Rio and Blade again, back with GavinDragon. I guess we're going to have a casual discussion here about a random idea we had. You want to lead us off, Blade?
Alright, so one thing that I kind of had a realization of with the upcoming Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection is that this is going to be a lot of people's first exposure to this game series. And I've seen a lot of comments on like Nintendo's pages and PlayStation's pages advertising it. There has been a bit of backlash. A lot of it is from people who've either never heard of the game or longtime fans of the Mega Man franchise who are like, we don't want this, we want X9, Legends 3, Star Force 4. That's all well and good, we want those too. But on occasion, we get people who are, like, actively opposed to this. Like, I've seen some people call this the cringiest Mega Man series ever. And that got me thinking, what if Battle Network and Star Force never released back in the early 2000s? Ignoring the massive butterfly effect, because that was the majority of Mega Man games and content released back then, if we assume the timeline progressed mostly the same, but without those, how would audiences, particularly here in the West, react to an internet-based Mega Man game being released in the modern era? When the entire world build is focused around cyber society and basically it's a glorified cyber ghost that lives inside a smartphone, and that's the main character. You run around with your smartphone, you plug into all these smart appliances, and you can do a lot of that in the modern day. You're basically sending Siri with a body into these computer worlds. And while it was cutting edge back in the day, and we love the idea because it seemed like it was a possible future, today a lot of stuff from Battle Network is not only available in the modern day, but some things are actually obsolete by our technology standpoint. So I feel like this is one of those instances where it being ahead of its time was actually to its benefit. But we got Gavin up here today to give us possibly an alternate viewpoint, because I personally think it would have hurt the legacy of Battle Network a little bit if it had been released today and not 20 years ago. But, I figured let's make this a dialogue instead of just some grumpy old man shouting his opinion at nobody,
And the devil's advocate.
Yeah, and the devil's advocate. So,
Well, the biggest thing I would see occurring in terms of just how it would affect the games themselves, just untouched, because I have a few thoughts of what would probably change, because obviously they wouldn't be the same released modern day. But if they were just one-to-one the same games released now, the first thing I would think is that half of the just outlandish things that's portrayed there, like as if it would be outlandish, just wouldn't be that surprising this day and age. Like just having a random computer virus, air quotes, turn on a flamethrower system that was, there for security, but just now is killing people.
Yeah, that could kind of happen in today's world, because you can trigger fire sprinklers with like computer programs, can't you?
Yeah, if it's connected to a system, yeah. So just a bunch of things like that. It's just like back in 2010, it's like, oh no, a terrorist organization used viruses to, capture a satellite that people aren't supposed to know about that has a giant laser cannon. That sounded wild in 2003, or stuff of that effect.
Yeah.
But if I promise you, if you told me today, it's just like apparently just America-based. America had a satellite with a laser cannon, and someone somewhere took it over, I'd just be like, sucks, but I'm not really surprised.
You're more surprised at the fact that we have a satellite than the hackers took it over.
Yeah. It's just like the cybernetic portions of a lot of the story just lose a lot of their wonder.
Yeah. And that's what the developers said. They said when they were designing this world, it was the idea of modern day, but stretching just a little bit further. That's something they would like to see. And again, that's why it felt kind of real back in the day. But there's a lot of ways that I feel like this might, I'm not going to say it's aged poorly, but if it were to be released today, it would not be as well received. So,
yeah.
Well, there's a few benefits I could see about it being released today. One, you wouldn't have the character limits, so there wouldn't be any strange leet speak dialogue because they had to shorten text.
Yeah.
If they went with a sprite work basis, it would probably look a lot more like something by Inti Creates or incredibly fluid animations like Way Forward. It'd be easier to produce, so they could probably put them out at a fairly good pace. They probably wouldn't crunch nearly as badly as they did on those games, so they might be a bit more polished. In many ways, I think releasing it nowadays, yes, you could have the same pitch, but you'd have to... there would be changes to the games, obviously, even if they're just minor. And
even if they don't change like the overall basis or any mechanics, just the tools that the developers would have at their disposal would be better. So even in a one-to-one scenario, the game would be made better.
Right. And on the subject of like crunching down for character limits, I will say yes, that's actually one thing I had considered. If it was released modern day for modern platforms and consoles, then all those technology limits that were present back in the day, all the removed content, that all goes out the window. Anything that was cut was probably just because it just didn't fit, if we were to give it the non-limitations of today by comparison. Mm-hmm. The angle I was looking at it more so was how would the modern Western crowd react to something internet-based? Because even using the crunch down lead speak as an example, when you have characters, especially in Battle Network 1, if they say, like, who are you? They replace the word R with the letter R and the word U with the letter U. You know, that's kind of funny. It's like, that's something that people did on the internet and during early texting days. You know, that's kind of funny. But when we are this deep into the era of everyone having access to smartphones and cell phones, I couldn't fault somebody if they were to look at this and be like, they decided to put Mega Man in the Emoji Movie. Or something to that effect. Something that is cashing in on modern trends to look hip with the kids, but it's going to be obsolete in like 6 months. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the angle I was approaching things at, because again, you got fans who have been playing Mega Man since the 80s, and they don't like anything beyond like the first X game, which I get that a lot of times whenever a reboot comes out, people will say, oh, this is for a new audience, but it's an undeniable fact that no matter what the IP is, people who consume it the most are going to be existing fans of said IP. But Battle Network, and actually most games in the Mega Man franchise, have their own branches of the fan base who will flock to that one branch over the others just because that's the one they like the most, no matter how they got into it, you know? Mm-hmm.
Well, even with that, though, I couldn't see it being... I can't see it being quote-unquote cringy or, you know, turning away new people just because it's different. In fact, if anything, I could see it pulling more people in because you've got existing Mega Man fans who would be incredibly curious about it. They might wait for a review or two. Reviewers who have taken a new stance towards it. If you've ever seen it, like the older reviews for these games were abysmal, but more recently, if you look at modern reviews of these games, they're way more positive. Like you couldn't even imagine.
No, we actually can. We actually did a video covering X-Play and their take on Battle Network 6.
That was rough.
Yeah,
that was a hard watch.
Hey, and prepare yourself, Rio, because we still have we have a full big long list. I don't wanna. We got a playlist of like 7 or 8 more videos we got to sit through.
That first one already made me hurt, so that was what made me go ahead and drag up some of these older reviews, even for the retrospective that I did. But regardless, the reviews would be better, more fans would flock to it. You've already got the existing Mega Man fans which would come to it. Some would like it, some wouldn't, of course, like anything. And then you'd have this whole new group of fans, you know, the Pokemon fans, the Digimon fans, which, in the casual market, which you could all market to, because all of these fans wouldn't know Mega Man, and they wouldn't need to know Mega Man, because it's a new Mega Man.
Yeah.
There's a lot more ways that I could spin this to make it look really cool and really fun. Like, even when I did the second part of the Mega Man retrospective, I was introducing this to somebody who had never heard of Battle Network before. That, believe it or not, they had never played anything more than Mega Man 1, and when I pitched this game series to them, a Mega Man RPG where everything's on the internet, they looked at me and said it was the cringiest thing ever. And then I showed them gameplay, and I showed them gameplay, I described the concept a little more in depth, and I described it, and I just literally let them play it. And just like that, it was instant turnaround. So I'd have to say have to be very careful with marketing it. Of course, you'd have to let people have demos. You'd have to let reviewers try it. You have to let fans, give it a go. But I think once that the first game's out, there would instantly be a second game.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see it failing, even in the West. Like, it's not something where it's a new medium like Mega Man Fully Charged was on TV, where he's got a tiny little repair robot in his head. It's like, yeah, that's weird, and people were like, it's Battle Network but robots. And everybody was just kind of, and the studio let them, the Cartoon Network let them down with their air date and air times. I don't see Capcom letting it fail, so I can't say that I think that it would be a flop. I don't think it'd be cringy. I'd say, yes, there'd be an initial batch of young people going, yeah, it's cringy, that's trying to market to me. And then after that initial wave of people got over that, started seeing it a little bit better, like seeing more of it, they'd be like, oh, no, it's actually really cool.
Something I thought about, and you introducing it to your friend kind of segues into it pretty well for me, is that another angle to think about it, if we're still discussing it being brought out as a one-to-one, it's just the same game, storyline, everything.
Maybe with some polished graphics and sound, but like same world build, same basic thing.
Even not thinking about the extra polish and stuff like that, there has been in recent years, and kind of going out to not so recent, but still the majority of it, I would say, is here recently, there has been a massive resurgence in interest of retro style games. Not necessarily retro games, but like we were talking earlier today,
Undertale.
Yeah, but like other games that are like love letters to them. Chained Echoes, I've recently played through it. It's basically just 90s, early 2000s RPG, the love letter.
Something like Pizza Tower, where it's clearly Wario Land 4. It even kind of looks like MS Paint drawings.
Yeah. But it exactly. But there's such a resurgence in interest for retro, I guess maybe in contrast to the just everything being epic and out of proportion for AAA titles.
Yeah. Just
going back to the simple has become such a big thing that there's actually been an instance where people are nostalgic for stuff that never actually happened. Because, like, for example, people have become really interested in, like, pixel art.
Yeah.
Right? But pixel art, as we think of it today, like what people are nostalgic for, we never actually experienced back in the day. Because, like, you take Chrono from Chrono Trigger's pixel portrait.
Yeah.
And you look at it now and it looks like decent pixel art. But you put it on a CRT, which is the only medium you really would have been able to see it on back in the day, and that's not how it looks at all.
Yeah, that's a whole separate rabbit hole all its own, like how pixels looked on CRT versus on HD.
But that's just an example of the just going back to retro. There's so much like interest in
the
older stuff and the aesthetic that I really don't think it would just fail outright. Just one-to-one, nothing changed. Because again, it's caused a situation where people are nostalgic for things that, yeah.
That does make a lot of sense. On the subject of you gotta market it right, just don't let whoever did the trailer for Mighty Number 9 handle this. That was a mistake.
You mean Mighty Number 2? Because it's a massive pilot?
You mean that we won't cry like anime fans on prom night? Back to the game. There's a lot of benefits of it coming out. And heck, the Giga chips and the Mega chips and stuff, you can put them out easier. You wouldn't have to still hold tournaments, but then like months down the line, when the tournament's long past, you could be like, hey, look, here's more chips, here's a new set, here's a new meta, because you could have full online modes like right out the gate that you didn't have on the Game Boy Advance.
That kind of leads into like what else could it have been? Because you mentioning that makes me think it's like the online card game kind of stuff, like Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, where it's like you play and you build and then you buy packs to get chips in this case.
So since we're already kind of looking at alternate timeline here, let's go darkest timeline.
No.
Battle Network,
No.
released in the modern day, has the potential to be exclusively a gacha game.
It just on the phone gacha game too. Not even like
Not even on
Genshin.
Steam.
Not even like Genshin on
Yeah,
the
see-
PlayStation.
No, like not even on console, because looking at this mindset that I was going into this, and that kind of sparked the entire thing. If we are doing this aimed at a modern audience reboot style thing, to where we want to capitalize on trends, let's say that because they're looking at the angle of everyone has basically a super cell phone that connects to the internet, the only way you play it is on mobile, and because the most profitable types of mobile games are gacha games, Battle Network exists exclusively as a gacha hell, where story chapters are released, every couple of months or so. But for any upgrades for Mega Man, with your style change, double souls, battle chips, Navi customizer parts, it's all gachas. You gotta roll for them.
I don't like that. You didn't have to go all the way to the customizer parts.
So yeah, if they were to do that, then I think that pretty much destroys anything they have, at least here in the West. I can't really speak for the Japanese audience because, I'm American, so I don't know I don't know what the sensibilities are overseas, but over here, I feel like that would destroy the entire marketing for this game in particular. It would crash.
They do
and it
that.
would burn.
They do that. I shut my own casket.
I'm out. I'm done.
Yeah. Oh god. And somehow, because X Dive, that is sort of gacha like by my understanding, but at the same time, it's like you don't have to have them. But if it was Battle Network in a gacha style, god.
Especially if you want to play it as like a 1-to-1 game, where imagine if you were just emulating the game on your phone,
And then had to do a microtransaction
microtransaction.
to unlock a program advance.
Yeah. Oh, that's even worse.
Yeah.
Well, to get the battle chips for it, yeah. Hey, yeah, you are one battle chip away from this, but instead of finding it in mystery data, you got to roll the gacha. It's like you get one free roll per day, you get 10 cards.
3% chance at an asterisk chip.
Yeah, and then
You know what? Just cue that clip from the IT crowd where he walks out a window. That'd be me all the way. I don't think I can think
The
of
Game
a
of Thrones
positive way to spin that.
yeah, it's like cache.exe. I give you permission to delete the world now.
Yep, later, guys. Whoa.
I don't want to live on this planet anymore. Well, you have officially succeeded in giving me a modicum of hope for this timeline, because I no longer think it's just the darkest.
Because and truth be told, all joking aside, I would love to see an EXE specific mobile game, but I don't want that to be its only release method, And as someone who, if you've been watching my channel at all for actually basically prior to about 3 years ago, you know how much fake Grand Order content we pumped out back in the day. I have lived in gacha hell for several years, and
You were stronger than me, I just couldn't do it.
roll for the waifu, man, roll for the waifu. But in this case, this is one where I think Mega Man would take a massive L.
Yeah, I don't see a gacha game doing very well, especially when you have Grand Order and what's it, Grand Blue Fantasy? It's the other really big
Azure Lane. Is that it?
I don't know, just all the other big gacha games. Yeah.
And even X Dive has fallen prey to the whole waifu trap thing because they get swimsuits for all the female characters.
Well, yeah.
I'm over here bruh, roll is like a little girl robot. Just get the baseball bat, bunk. But yeah, layer and palette, gotta roll for that. But that's again, that's darkest timeline for EXE if that was the only release method. Because there actually have been pieces of Battle Network, or not Battle Network, Battle Network 2, but Mega Man Media that are exclusively online or mobile games, like Mega Man X Over.
Mm-hmm.
That one is lost media at this point. But
Which is a shame. The soundtrack's great for that, though.
It had some pretty cool character designs, but I'll never get to play it.
Conversely, though, to the absolute hell that would be a gacha game.
Yeah.
Imagine if you would a more dot hack-ish or cyber sleuth-ish internet traipsing, maybe procedurally generated dungeons Mega Man release.
That would be phenomenal. I would say that if we're gonna go with any sort of Mega Man mobile game, then they need to Pokemon Go this. You can go to...
Have the Ingress crew. Niantic. Have them.
So you go to what would be Pokestops in Pokemon Go, but instead they are like different internet areas.
Net cafes.
Yeah, net cafes. You can set up like net squares. You can customize your own Navi, give them your own folder and all that. You can battle viruses to earn Zenny and upgrade parts and things like that. That actually would be cool. And that's something that I honestly think would hit really well for nostalgic fans. I don't know how it'd do in the modern world, if it was like a brand new fan, or if this is the first thing Battle Network ever did. But it's something that'd be great for the nostalgic fans, because that's kind of what the world built promised. And that's what we would love to see. I've heard countless people say that they'd like to see that.
Yeah, it would be pretty cool.
So, I guess this, aside from it being trapped in a gacha hell, I guess the alternate timeline where Battle Network comes out in the modern day and then Star Force following right after it. Actually, Star Force might even do better in the modern day.
Yeah.
With
space interest and stuff like that.
Well, not just that, but like with the with how much people are now focusing on like mental health and
yeah, that too.
That kind of stuff. That was like one of the major cruxes of the entire character drive of Star Force. That would actually do even better in the modern day than it did back then, I would think.
I guess. Oh no.
Oh no, what happened?
There's a worse timeline.
Oh dear. What's worse than...
Okay, imagine if you will, they make a video game kind of based off of it, but it's one of those TV show video game tie-ins, but they do it like Teen Titans Go style and call it like Mega Man Cyber.
So it's not even Battle Network anymore, but it's like... You see, and that line of thinking is kind of what spawned this entire thing.
I don't even want to think about it anymore. I regret bringing it up.
You gave it physical form. That was actually kind of the angle I was going at with modern Western audiences. If it had never existed before, if they rebooted it as something else, then it would be hated by the longtime fans. Because I was thinking about how Teen Titans Go and Thundercats Roar and Powerpuff Girls 2016, a lot of it modernizes, it capitalizes on like trends and meme culture and all that. Yeah. I was thinking, this is also Japanese media compared to American media, so it would be different. But the angle I was coming at it from was the sensibilities of the Western audience might immediately be turned off by that idea.
Okay. Well, I know we don't have a camera going, but I triggered my own fight or flight response for anyone who was wondering. Ugh.
Yeah, I see your silver hair is going ultra instinct at this. You're getting ready to punch something.
Now, at least I do have... I can turn that into a small positive. So, when it comes to Teen Titans Go, yeah, it ain't meant for me. I've seen it. I'm not a fan. But it has gotten younger kids into watching the the older Teen Titans cartoon, and even looking back at the comic books and whatnot.
It's a gateway.
Yeah.
So I could see that coming out and more kids getting interested in the other Mega Man media out there. Honestly, I know a lot of there were actually, despite its awful air date, I have had a few young people talk about Fully Charged to me, and I completely was like, "Oh, did you know there's all these games too?" And they're like, "What?" And that's their introduction to everything else. My nephews, for example, like, yeah, they knew Mega Man before Fully Charged, but they were really little when I introduced them to it. Once they saw Fully Charged, they bugged me about it, and that's when I was like, yeah, I've got all the games, which one you want to borrow?
Yeah. Yeah, don't get me wrong, I don't think that they're just inherently bad, it's just they're portrayed as connected, and in a lot of cases, like the Go and the Roar and all that, they end up changing some of the like fundamental basis of them.
And sometimes outright being disrespectful to the fans of the original.
In some cases. So just, again, I don't think they're just outright bad, it's just I am extremely averse to them.
Yeah. Again, the kind of to reiterate what I said a second ago, that's not necessarily to say that a modern internet Mega Man would be a Teen Titans Go, but the angle I was coming at this whole argument from was I feel like that's how a good chunk of the Western audience, particularly in my age group, might perceive it if they are told this is the new Mega Man. But kind of like Gavin said, if they market it correctly and don't hire the guy who did the My Number 9 promo, then I feel like that actually could have been a brighter alternate timeline than I initially imagined. So yeah, that's why we brought you on today, Gav. I'm glad you were able to give us a alternate angle
Yeah,
on this.
several things I wouldn't have thought of, definitely.
I'm glad I could bring that, honestly. Like, that was one of my major things that I did when I wanted to make the Mega Man retrospective. When I did the first 2 parts, I wanted it to be super positive and be like, hey, there's all these things that you guys didn't even think about at first that I've been looking at for years. So, I'm glad I could bring some positiveness to this discussion.
Well, I mean, I think this has been a pretty cool topic of discussion. If there's nothing else, this has been Ryoji42 and Blade Cross EXE with Flashing Blade Productions with GavinDragon. Thanks again for coming. I mean, really appreciate your insight.
No problem, guys.
This might be something we do more often, but y'all please make sure you go check out Gavin's channel. It'll be linked down below. He did some really cool videos on Mega Man retrospective. So, again, thanks again for coming, Gavin, and thank y'all for watching. Peace.
Peace out.
Later, guys.